The theories of truth. According to Acuna, the theories of truth can be used to certify or falsify an empirical and evaluative claim. Acuna focuses on two theories of truth: coherence and correspondence theory of truth. Acuna focuses first on the less controversial theory of truth, which is the coherence theory of truth. The term coherence itself is a relational term. Since it is a relational term, it aims to relate two categories, wherein the first category are formal knowledge claims, and the second category are within the formal systems. A belief is true when we are able to incorporate these two categories in an orderly and logical manner into a larger and more complex system of beliefs. The formal knowledge claims may come in different forms. For example, we all know that the measure of a right angle is 90 degrees. Therefore, we can say the measure of a right angle is 90 degrees. The statement is an example of a well-formed formula that belongs to the formal system of geometry. The statement that must follow must be within the formal system the first category belongs in. Another example are the tautological statements. I am using a blue marker, or not. These tautological statements are either-or statements that belong to the formal system of logic. In this example, the second category must also be within the formal system of logic in order to cohere with the first. Another example is this: you can only get into UP if you pass the UPCAT. You passed the UPCAT. Therefore, you can get into UP. To simply state, coherence theory states that something is true if it coheres a set of beliefs or a set of propositions held to be true. The next theory is the correspondence theory of truth. Acuna states that, like coherence, correspondence is also a relational term. However, we must note that in the correspondence theory of truth, an empirical knowledge claim and a theory of reality should act as the first and second category consecutively. This theory states that a belief is true if there exists an appropriate entity to which it corresponds to. For example, there is a water fountain in front of the cultural center of the Philippines. This belief is true because there is such a thing as a water fountain, and there is a place called as CCP. Therefore, it is true that the water fountain is in front of the cultural center of the Philippines. Acuna takes a realistic approach in understanding the controversial correspondence theory of truth. He divides it further into three according to manner of correspondence: direct observation, future observation, and evidence provided by a representative. Direct observation is used for events in the present. For example, currently you are watching this, or I am writing this. It is true because it is currently happening as supported and verified by the senses. The evidence of observation of past regularities is utilized for the correspondence with future observation. For example, the dark and heavy clouds signal that it will rain. The clouds have been the biggest indicator of weather in the field of science and is used to predict what the weather condition will be. The last classification is evidence provided by a representative. In this classification, an eyewitness is required. For example, my mother placed apples in the celery juice this morning. This statement corresponds to what I have witnessed as she was making the celery juice, therefore may be true.
Verification by intersubjective consensus. Intersubjective consensus is the agreement between people on the definition or meaning of the situation. Example is the claim, stealing is wrong. This claim is a generalization of the intersubjective consensus of the people playing a language game while sharing a form of life. Using the correspondence theory of truth, we can verify that this claim, stealing is wrong, is supported with a strong intersubjective consensus and correspondence to the value or moral system of the concerned audience. The moral rule or principle is a generalization of the intersubjective consensus of the people playing a language game and sharing a form of life. When you accept an evaluative claim, you must also accept its prescription. Rejecting the prescriptive claim will result in dissonance or the lack of harmony. Consider the evaluative claim plagiarism is wrong. If we accept this claim, then we must also accept the prescription do not plagiarize is right. The prescriptive claim can be falsified if we establish the rightness of the claim. Plagiarism is good. We can justify the rightness of a claim by gathering the required intersubjective consensus from a concerned audience. Intersubjective consensus has two types, the deontological justification and the teleological justification. Deontological justification determines the morality of an action based on its nature or the action itself. Example is, total logging ban is good in itself. The teleological justification determines the morality of an action based on its consequences. An example is, the total logging ban is good because of its beneficial consequences for the country. However, sometimes immoral policies become legal. Example is gambling. Gambling is justified as legal because it has beneficial consequences to the economy. Needless to say, it is much better to justify a policy proposal that exhibits morality both in its nature and its consequences.
Welcome to Unit 2, Module 5. The title of this module is Your Obligation as a Critical Thinker. Basically, this module will tell us about our obligation as critical thinkers in the field of philosophy according to Andresito Acuna, and what elements do we need to understand in order to carry out this obligation. So before we start, let's first define what is critical thinking, in order for us to get a glimpse of our role as critical thinkers. So the dictionary tells us that critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. Simply means that before we come up with a judgment or conclusion, we must first critique an idea or information through applying high level of thinking orders such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Now let's move on to Andresito Acuna's statement regarding our main obligation as critical thinkers. He tells us that we should never accept the truth of any statement or belief unless there's adequate evidences for it. And in order to fulfill this obligation, we must identify the three knowledge claims, namely, the realms of the known, the knowable, and the unknowable. So let's first talk about the realm of the known. This realm contains knowledges that the empirical sciences provide us. This information were verified through research, observation, testing, and experiments, and these knowledges are considered facts. So the first example is DNA testing. Through careful study and efforts of scientists, from our basic knowledge regarding our biological composition, we now attain the level of knowing ourselves on an anatomical level. The information provided in DNA tests are real and true and are derived from empirical processes. The next example is animal cloning. So in 1997, scientists successfully cloned the first animal, which is a sheep named Dolly. Now we know for a fact that animal cloning is possible, and at the present, we can't only clone sheep, but we can also clone other animals such as dogs. Now let's move on to the realm of the knowable. Knowable knowledges are usually extrapolations from the known. Extrapolation means extension, derived, or made out. So we can say that the realm of the knowable contains knowledges which are derived or founded from known data. Scientists are still probing, studying, and improving these knowable data, but the possibility of these moving into the known realm years from now might be within our reach. Now let's head on to the examples. The first one is human cloning. Technology for cloning human beings is not far off because scientists have done it successfully on animals. The next example is origin of life on Earth. A lot of theories with regard to this has been improved throughout the years. The evidences of our origins are just around us, and not to mention, scientific processes such as carbon dating have been invented to help us track the age and life on Earth. We have the realm of the unknowable. No evidence can be produced to support the claims of unknowable knowledge. So examples of these are origin of the universe. So the origin of the universe cannot be explained because electromagnetic waves and other components from the universe's formation that could give clue to how it happened are lost in deep space. We come up with the best theory from the tiny amounts of those that we can observe and analyze. To definitely know for sure, we need all of the data, but most of them are lost in the ever-expanding universe. The next one is the existence of God. We cannot prove this empirically. That is why it is classified as unknowable. Now let's move on to the realm of the provable and unprovable. Provable claims are knowledge claims in the realm of the known and knowable. Claims with evidences, in fact or in principle. Unprovable claims say otherwise. These are claims that can't be supported by evidences and are also called unknowable claims. So let's have example of unprovable claims. Statements such as there is heaven and hell, and the soul that survives death is trapped in a cycle of reincarnation are viewed as unprovable claims. When we take this empirically, it will be impossible for us to produce the required evidence to prove the truthfulness and realness of these claims. Now, after studying about these different knowledge claims, how do we apply these into our daily lives? Andresito Acuña provides 3 practical advantages of these distinctions. The first one is ability to guard yourself against accepting rumors, chismes, gossips, and superstitions. The second is ability to not readily accept statements or beliefs uttered by authorities as true. And the third one is, in the long run, accumulate beliefs and information founded on evidence. We must keep in mind that we must only accept claims in the realm of the provable and dismiss those of the unprovable. Andresito Acuña guarantees us that applying these distinctions will transform us into critical and independent thinkers.